Some of you walked in here today already feeling behind in your goals, behind in your career, behind in life. Maybe you've wasted years on fear, distractions, doubts, simply waiting for the right time. And now you're looking around and realizing others have already taken off running, and maybe, just maybe, a voice inside you is whispering, it's too late, but I'm here to tell you, it's not too late, but it is time to run, because the one who starts late doesn't get to stroll. You don't get to tiptoe towards your destiny. You've got to run fast, hard, focused. This speech isn't for the ones who had a head start. It's for the ones who've been knocked down, delayed, distracted, or dismissed and are ready to catch up and break through. So if you've ever felt like the world moved ahead without you, this is your moment to claim back your time, your power, your momentum. Stay with me. Every word I'm about to speak is for you. Let me tell you something that most people don't want to admit out loud. They're waiting for the right moment, waiting for more clarity, waiting for someone to believe in them, waiting for the fear to go away. And that waiting, that hesitation is the very reason they're behind. You see, the person who starts late didn't necessarily lack talent. They didn't lack potential. They lacked was urgency. What they lacked was the willingness to move before everything felt safe, secure, or certain. Let me break something to you gently but directly. There is no perfect moment. That moment where you'll feel totally ready, totally confident, totally fearless, that moment doesn't exist. And if you keep waiting for it, you will lose years of your life to a lie. The people who get ahead, the ones who build momentum, ones who create breakthroughs, they don't wait for permission, they move. They start with shaky legs and pounding hearts, not because it's the right time, but because they decide that it's their time. That decision, that internal shift is what makes all the difference. I know some of you in this room or listening right now, you've been sitting on ideas for years. You've had the dream, the desire inside of you, but you've kept it hidden behind delays, behind perfectionism, behind fear disguised as logic. You said to yourself, let me just fix this first. Let me just get through this month. Let me wait until the kids grow up, until the money's better, until I feel more confident. But what you're really doing is bargaining with time, and time doesn't negotiate. Life moves. It doesn't wait. And the harsh truth is that while you've been waiting to feel ready, someone else already started with less than you, and they're making progress. They're building, they're failing forward. They're not perfect. They're present. They're not fully confident, but they're committed. And that commitment, not their talent, not their luck, that commitment is what's moving them ahead. Now, I'm not here to shame you for starting late. I'm not here to tell you it's over, far from it. What I'm telling you is that from this moment forward, the illusion of the perfect time has to die, because the longer you believe in it, the longer you'll wait. And the longer you wait, faster you'll have to run just to catch up. But here's the beauty in all of this. You still can catch up. You still can make up for lost time, but only if you stop waiting. Only if you let go of this idea that you need to have it all figured out before you take the first step. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a starting point. You need a spark, a moment, a line in the sand where you say, no more waiting. I move now. I act now. I commit now. Because when you do that, something changes. You shift from passive to powerful, from stuck to in motion, from dreamer to doer. Look, I get it. Starting is scary, especially when you feel behind, especially when you see people 10 steps ahead and you're still figuring out where to begin. But let me tell you something. Most of the people you admire didn't start with a map either. They started with a must. They didn't know every answer. They knew this, I can't stay here. And sometimes that's all you need, a refusal to stay in the same place, a decision to stop letting fear be the gatekeeper of your future. A choice to stop watching life happen for others and start making it happen for yourself. Don't fall for the lie that you need confidence to begin. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You build it with every step, every risk, every uncomfortable leap forward. You gain it every time you show up and refuse to shrink. And I promise you, the more you move, the more momentum you build. And that momentum, that's what makes up for the delay. That's what allows you to catch up and sometimes even surpass those who started before you. Not because you're faster, smarter, or luckier, but because you're hungry. The late starter has a unique kind of power if they choose to use it. It's the power of urgency, the fire that comes from knowing you have no more time to waste, the drive that says, I've got to make this count, I've got to go now. I've got to give more than what's expected. The pressure, when harnessed, becomes pure fuel. But only if you stop pretending you have time. So let me ask you this, what are you still waiting for? What excuse are you holding on to that's keeping you parked while life speeds by? Because if you're going to start late, you've got to start now, not tomorrow. Not next week, not after you figure things out. You figure things out by starting, by moving, by stepping in before you feel ready. You don't get to tiptoe anymore. You don't get to test the water with your toe. You dive and you run, you act, you commit. And once you finally choose movement over delay, that's when life starts to respond. That's when you'll find opportunities that were waiting for your courage. That's when doors start to open, not because someone gave you permission, but because you earned your momentum through bold, imperfect action. So I'll say it again. The perfect moment you're waiting for, it's never coming. But your moment, that moment, the one where you draw the line and decide to go all in, that moment can be right now. Make it count. You've heard me say it before, motion changes emotion. Once you've decided to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start moving, there's another critical step you can't afford to skip: owning the delay. Let's get honest for a second. It's easy to say, I started late, like it just happened to you. But if we're going to build real power, real momentum, real transformation, then we need to stop telling half-truths. You didn't just start late. You chose to wait. You chose to postpone. You chose to believe the excuses. And you know what? That's okay. You're human. But now you've got to take the wheel back. You've got to own that delay fully. Because until you take responsibility, you're still a victim of the delay. You're still blaming circumstances, people, timing, and conditions. And as long as you're doing that, you're giving away your power. And I don't care how fast you're trying to run now. If you're dragging the weight of excuses behind you, you're not going to catch up. We've all done it. If my parents had supported me more, if I had more money, if I had started when I was younger, if I hadn't wasted so much time on that relationship. But let's be real. That chapter is already written. The ink is dry. Matters now is how you write the next one. And it begins with you saying this out loud: that was on me. That one line can change your life. Because when you own your delay, you also own your comeback. You can't control everything that happened to you, but you can control what you do with it now. And the moment you take full responsibility, you stop bleeding energy into things you can't change and start pouring it into things you can. Here's what's crazy. People think blaming others keeps them safe. It doesn't. It keeps them stuck. Because every time you point the finger outward, you're unconsciously saying, I'm not in control. And if you're not in control, hope do you have of ever catching up? But when you take responsibility, not just for what went wrong, but for how long you stayed there, you reclaim your fire, you reclaim your momentum, you step into the driver's seat. And now you can do something powerful. You can choose differently. That's the breakthrough. Responsibility isn't about guilt. It's about ownership. It's not about blaming yourself for what you didn't know. It's about refusing to keep living like you still don't know. You know now. And with that awareness comes a choice. Keep repeating the cycle or break it right now. You don't get to write the beginning of your story, but you absolutely get to rewrite the ending. But only if you're willing to be radically honest with yourself. So ask yourself, why did I start late? What did I believe that held me back? Fears did I feed? What lies did I tell myself to stay comfortable? That level of truth might sting, but it also sets you free. Because when you expose the excuses, they lose their power. When you look them dead in the eye, you realize they were never protecting you, they were only delaying you. Maybe you said, I don't have time. But somehow you always had time for distractions. Maybe you said, I'm not ready. But deep down, you were just scared to fail. Maybe you told yourself, it's not my fault. But secretly, you were afraid to admit that it was in your hands all along. Now, here's the gift. Once you own your delay, you can use it. You can fuel your urgency with it. You can turn regret into responsibility. You can take the pain of those lost months or years and convert it into a level of intensity that no early starter can match. Because now you're not running from your past. You're running because of it. That's the kind of fire that creates miracles. That's the kind of fire that turns a late start into a legendary finish. Not because you're perfect, but because you're done pretending you're not in control. The people who make the fastest comebacks aren't the ones with the most resources. They're the ones with the most ownership. They say, yeah, I messed up. I hesitated. I froze. I hid, but not anymore. And then they move. They move with clarity. They move with hunger. They move with conviction. You've got to be bold enough to call yourself out and brave enough to keep going anyway. That's how you earn speed. That's how you make up for lost ground. That's how you turn shame into strength. You don't bury it, you use it. You don't deny it, you redirect it. So no more blaming, no more rehearsing the past like it's still your story. That delay, it's done. You're here now, aware, in the game. Now the question is, what are you going to do with that awareness? Because from this point on, every excuse becomes a lie you no longer believe in. Every old story becomes a chapter you're not reading anymore. Every minute you used to waste becomes an investment in your next level. The delay wasn't the end of your story, it was the beginning of your urgency. And now you run. Now that you've stopped waiting for the perfect moment, you've taken full responsibility for the delay, you've got to accept the next truth. And this one is non-negotiable. When you're behind, when you've started late, the clock's already been ticking, you don't get to move at a comfortable pace anymore. That option is off the table. Comfort is a luxury you can't afford. This is where most people fall off. They say they want to catch up. They say they're ready. They say they've had enough. But what they're really hoping for is a shortcut, a hack, a miracle, something that'll let them run fast without sweating. Something that'll let them catch up without intensity. Let me tell you the truth. Straight and raw, you don't catch up from the back with casual effort. You don't accelerate by doing what's easy. You accelerate by doing what's required, and usually that's 10 times more than you're used to giving. You've got to train your mind and your body to move with urgency, with precision, with an unshakable sense of discipline. There's no more space for, I don't feel like it today. That mindset is a ticket to nowhere. The person who starts late can't live in the same rhythm as the person who started early. They've got margin, you don't. They can afford to rest longer. Coast a little, you can't. You've got to push harder, focus sharper, move quicker, go deeper. You've got to do in months what they've taken years to do. That means tapping into a level of consistency and energy that most people never touch, not because they can't, but because they're not desperate enough to find it. Well, you've got the gift of urgency. That fire is available to you right now, and if you choose to step into it, you'll unlock strength you didn't even know you had. You need to change your relationship with pressure. Most people run from it. You've got to run into it. You've got to use it. Pressure is not your enemy. It's your edge. It sharpens you. It strips away distractions. It forces you to focus on what matters most. It gives you no time to second guess, to hesitate, to drift. That pressure is what makes you dangerous if you let it. Discipline is not a punishment. It's the path. It's the gateway to freedom. The more structured you become, the more power you gain. The more rules you set for yourself, the more you rise. You've got to treat your time like sacred ground. You don't scroll aimlessly. You don't say yes to everything. You don't live like you have extra hours to waste. You've got to be deliberate. You've got to become obsessed with momentum. This is not about hustle for the sake of hustle. This is not about glorifying burnout. This is about alignment, aligning your habits with your hunger, aligning your actions with your ambition. You can't say you want to catch up and still live like you've got time to spare. That's called delusion. Let's be real. Discipline is hard. Focus is uncomfortable. Saying no to what feels good in the moment, that's a battle. If you don't master that battle, you'll keep losing to the same cycle. You'll stay stuck in that same loop of almost did it, almost committed, almost changed. There's no power in almost. And listen, the discipline I'm talking about, it's not just about waking up early or grinding nonstop. It's about mastering your emotions, staying locked in on your mission even when doubt creeps in. It's about showing up when it's boring. It's frustrating when nobody's cheering you on. It's about repetition. Reps, and more reps, until the habit becomes automatic, until the grind becomes your rhythm. Discipline isn't just about doing more. It's about doing what matters most over and over again with ruthless consistency. You've got to become the kind of person who follows through no matter what, not when it's convenient, when you feel motivated, but always, every time. That's what builds speed. That's what turns a late start into an explosive rise. And the beauty is, this intensity isn't something you're born with. It's trained, it's built. You develop it one choice at a time. You choose intensity over apathy. You choose discipline over distraction. You choose growth over comfort. Every day, every decision, you're casting a vote for the version of you that either stays behind or catches up and passes everyone who ever doubted you. You've got to fall in love with doing the hard stuff. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you are now. It's the identity you're stepping into. You don't dabble anymore. You dominate. You don't just try. You decide. You don't flirt with commitment. You marry it. The world's not going to slow down to wait for you. If you really want to run twice as fast, you can't bring a lazy mindset to a race that demands hunger. You've got to want it more. You've got to work for it harder. And you've got to focus like your life depends on it. Because in some way, this is the season where comfort has to die, where convenience is no longer your compass. You're building a new standard for yourself now, one where intensity, clarity, and commitment are not optional. They're required. They're embedded in your DNA now. And if you live that standard, if you own it daily, you will move faster than you ever thought possible. You will gain ground others thought was lost. You will not only catch up, you'll outpace, outlast, outperform the ones who had every advantage but lacked your fire. Discipline is your path forward. Intensity is your speed. And consistency is your advantage. So don't slow down. Accelerate at some point along the way. When you've started late, you've owned the delay. And when you've begun to move with intensity, there's still this one trap that can pull you back faster than anything else, self-pity. That voice in your head that says, it's not fair. They hadn't had more time. I didn't get it what they got. I'm too far behind. Let me be real with you. That voice is poison. It sounds like truth. It sounds like logic. It might even sound like compassion. What it really is a sedative. It numbs your fire. It slows you down. It keeps you locked in the very place you're trying to escape. You don't move forward by feeling sorry for yourself. You move forward by focusing on progress. Every ounce of energy you waste reliving the past is energy you could be using to shape your future. And this isn't about being cold or emotionless. It's about being awake. Because the truth is, there is no forward motion in self-pity. You can't build momentum while looking in the rearview mirror. You can't accelerate if your focus is chained to what should have been. You've got to make a decision, do I want sympathy or do I want results? Because you can't have both. Look, I get it, life's not fair. Some people were born ahead. Some people got a head start. Some people got breaks you didn't get. But you know what? Sitting in that pain won't close the gap. Only action will. Only forward moving will. Only choosing growth over grief. Progress over pity. Well, you've got to stop rehearsing the story that keeps you powerless. Stop telling yourself how hard it's been, how unfair it's been, how unlucky you've been. That story may be true, but if it's not useful, let it go. Because the longer you identify as the person who was left behind, the harder it becomes to believe you can lead. And you can. You can lead. You can rise. You can own your life again. But you've got to take your eyes off the gap and put them on the goal. Stop measuring how far behind you are and start measuring how much further you can go. That shift, that internal redirection, it changes everything because now your energy isn't being drained by comparison. It's being fueled by vision. You're not looking at others and seeing how far ahead they are. You're looking at yourself and seeing how far you've come since yesterday, since last week, since last month. That's where your power is in progress, not perfection, not pity, even catching up to others, just forward, just better, just more aligned, more clear, more committed, because pity is a loop. You can stay there for years. You can build a whole identity around it. You can even find people who will sit in it with you, will nod their heads and agree that you got dealt a bad hand. And if you're not careful, that becomes a kind of comfort, a trap disguised as empathy, a shared sadness that feels like belonging. But here's the truth. No one's coming to rescue you. You've got to rescue yourself. You've got to be the one who says, yeah, I was behind, but I'm not staying there. I'm moving. I'm growing. I'm rewriting the story from here. When you make that decision, everything changes. You stop feeling small. You stop apologizing for starting late. You stop looking back and start building forward, brick by brick, choice by choice, rep by rep. You shift from asking me to what now? You stop identifying as the victim of time and start acting like the owner of your future. That's where momentum begins. Because once you stop feeding the pity and you start feeding the progress, you discover something powerful. Movement heals. The very act of forward motion, even the smallest step, starts to change your state. It changes your chemistry. It changes how you see yourself. You go from thinking, I'm behind, to knowing, gaining. You go from thinking, I've lost too much time, to realizing I'm making the most of what I've got. That's a different energy. That's a different identity. That's where real breakthroughs come from. This isn't about pretending things didn't happen. It's not about denying the pain. It's about refusing to be defined by it anymore. It's about using it, learning from it, letting it shape your drive, but not your identity. You've got to treat your past like fuel, not an anchor. What you've been through isn't a weight on your back unless you keep carrying it that way. It can be a fire in your belly if you choose to reframe it. If you choose to say, because of that, going harder. Because of that, I'll never settle again. Because of that, I'll show the world and myself who I really am. That's how you move. That's how you rebuild. That's how you gain speed. Not through shame, not through blame. Focus, through alignment, through the relentless pursuit of progress. So every time that old voice comes back, the one that says, it's too late, or it's not fair, or you'll never catch up, I want you to interrupt it. I want you to respond with action. I want you to use movement as your answer. I want you to stop talking about the pain and start showing what you're doing with it. Because the greatest revenge is results. The greatest healing is progress. The greatest power you'll ever discover is the moment you stop needing pity and start demanding purpose from yourself. So don't feed the story of lack any longer. Feed the fire. There comes a point on this journey. Once you've stopped waiting, the delay, stepped into intensity and dropped the self-pity. When something becomes crystal clear, you don't have time to waste. Not anymore. You don't get to walk through your days like they're unlimited. You don't get to casually flip through hours like you've got 1,000 more coming next week. That's a mindset for someone with margin. But for you, the one who started late, time is sacred. The way you treat it now determines whether you stay behind or break through. You've got to start seeing every minute like currency, real currency, not theory, not metaphor. You're either spending it or investing it. And most people, they're spending it like it's play money, like it comes back automatically, like scrolling mindlessly, talking about nothing, procrastinating decisions. All of it has no cost, but it does. Every wasted minute is a minute you don't get back. Every distraction you indulge, every delay you justify, every conversation that leads nowhere, it's all a trade of time for nothing. And when you're behind, you don't get to make that trade anymore. You've got to become ruthlessly aware of where your time is going, not because you're scared, but because you're awake. Because you finally understand how expensive time really is. Because you understand that what you can do in a day, not what you say you'll do, not what you hope to do, but what you actually do will determine how fast you move. This is where people start to separate. Everyone talks about catching up. Everyone wants the comeback, but not everyone is willing to pay for it with time. They still think they can multitask their way to the top. They still think they can build a powerful future while living a distracted present. You can't. You won't. You've got to protect your time like your life depends on it, because if it does, you've got to treat it like the most valuable asset you own, because once you lose it, there's no getting it back. Money you can earn, connections you can rebuild. Time, once it's gone forever. And that's not meant to scare. It's meant to wake you up. It's meant to remind you that you still have time, but only if you stop wasting it. So take a look at how you spend your days, what you say your values are, but what your calendar says, what your habits say, what your choices say, because those are the real reflection of your priorities. Are you using your mornings to gain ground? Are you hitting snooze and letting the world beat you to the punch? Are you using your evenings to build momentum? Or are you numbing out, checking out, giving into temporary comfort? You've got to become a guardian of your time. That means learning to say no to things that don't align. That means learning to walk away from conversations, commitments, and even people who don't match the future you're building. That doesn't make you rude. That makes you clear. People who value their time walk differently. They think differently. They're not in a rush. They're in alignment. Their urgency isn't panic. It's purpose. It's precision. You've got to build that in you now. That means no more passive living. No more reactive days. No more filling the silence with distractions. You fill it with decisions, with creation, with study, with action. This is your edge now, because while everyone else is still busy wasting time pretending they've got more, you're maximizing every second. You're moving faster, not because you're frantic, but because you're focused. That's the difference. Being fast doesn't mean being frantic. It means being intentional. It means you know what matters and you give it your full self. You're not multitasking through your future. You're locking in on what moves the needle. You're building your day around momentum, around clarity, around effectiveness. You don't just fill your day, you build your day like a strategy, like a system, like a mission, because it is a mission. You don't get to live like your time is replaceable anymore. You don't get to waste the next hour and just call it a bad day. That hour is your advantage or it's your loss. And when you stack those hours with purpose, with focus, with discipline, that's how you cover more ground in 6 months than most do in 6 years. It's not about time management. It's about life management. You start deciding what kind of life you want, and then you build your time to match it. You reverse engineer your schedule around your purpose, around your comeback, around your future self. The more dialed in you get, the faster the progress gets. You've got to fall in love with the minute, not the outcome, not the big win, not the applause, the minute, the quiet, ordinary moment when you decide to stay focused. The minute when you choose to work instead of drift. The minute when you say no to what's easy and yes to what's essential. Those minutes, that's where the comeback happens. That's where the separation is created. That's where the gap is closed. From this point on, you don't just whose time, you own it. Every minute matters, every hour counts, every day is a brick. Stack them right, and you build something unshakable. Stack them wrong, and you spend the rest of your life trying to fix what distraction destroyed. So be the one who respects time so deeply it becomes your greatest weapon. And never again forget what your building costs. Everything. Let me tell you the most powerful truth about starting late. Your comeback can be greater than your delay. Read that again, because this is where everything shifts. This is the part most people never realize. They spend so much time beating themselves up for the time they lost, for the chances they missed, for the years they can't get back, that they never stop to ask the one question that actually matters now. What can I do with what I still have? Because let's be real, you're not here by accident. You're not listening to this message. You're not standing at this crossroads in your life because life is done with you. You're here because there's still more in you, more to build, more to give. To become, yeah, you started late. So what? That doesn't disqualify you. It qualifies you. You've seen more. You've fallen more. You've doubted more. And now, if you choose, you can rise harder. You can move with a kind of urgency, focus, hunger that people who started early don't even understand because they didn't have to fight for it. You do. And that fight, if you embrace your edge, it becomes your fire. It becomes the reason you train harder, wake up earlier, focus deeper, cut distractions faster. It becomes the reason you say no to everything that doesn't align because you've been on the other side. You know what wasted time tastes like? You've felt the sting of regret. You've watched opportunity slip through your fingers and you're done living like that. That pain, that pressure, that late start becomes your fuel. If you use it, really use it, you can cover more ground in your next chapter than most people cover in their entire story. The comeback doesn't happen because you wish for it. It happens because you work for it. Because you refuse to let your beginning determine your ending. Because you wake up every day and decide, today I close the gap. Today I go all in. And when you live like that, with that level of clarity, that level of purpose, that level of decision, you become unstoppable, not because everything is easy, not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer entertain the option of quitting. You're not here to be average. You're not here to stay behind. You're not here to be pitied. You're here to prove to yourself what's possible, to turn pain into power, delay into direction, struggle into strength. Let me ask you something. How many stories have you heard of people who started with everything, the resources, the time, the support, and still lost? Now ask yourself this, how many legends were built by people who started with nothing? No map, no support, head start, just grit, urgency, and a refusal to let their past write their future. There's your answer. The ones who start late, the ones who got knocked down, the ones who were counted out, those are the ones who often rise the highest. Because when the pain becomes your teacher and the delay becomes your fuel and the urgency becomes your rhythm, something inside you changes. You no longer need to be motivated. You're driven. You no longer need a reason. You are the reason. You don't wake up hoping for momentum. You create it. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to catch up to anyone. You're not here to beat someone else's timeline. You're here to become everything you were meant to become. You're here to build something extraordinary with whatever time you still have. And trust me, there's still time, but only if you stop looking backward. Only if you stop thinking you're behind. Only if you start realizing that the comeback isn't a fantasy. It's a decision. It's built one choice, one day, one powerful moment at a time. Don't you dare let the delay be your identity. Don't you dare let the past define your pace. You are not your setbacks. You are not your mistakes. You are not your missed chances. You are who you choose to be from this moment forward. And what you do next, how you show up now, can rewrite everything that came before it. You don't need to justify your delay anymore. You don't need to explain why you started late. That story is over. The only thing that matters now is the story you're writing with your actions, with your intensity, with your time, with your discipline. And if you bring all of that, if you show up every single day with your eyes locked on the future and your heart committed to the climb, you will blow your own mind with what you can build. Because this is the truth. People who start late, when they get serious, when they drop the excuses, the pity, the wasted minutes, they become a force, a different breed. Because they're not here to play, they're here to reclaim. You may have started late, but you can still finish stronger than everyone who started before you. If you want it, if you commit to it, if you decide right here, right now, that this is the season where everything changes, not because life finally gave you the perfect conditions, because you became the person who no longer needs them. The late start wasn't your curse. It was your call to rise. So rise.